Welcome to my designer class. My name is Mercy and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. In today's tutorial, I would like to show you how I made these U-fold cards. And these are also, referred to as fun folds. And I just had so much fun, actually, pardon the pun. But I got even so carried away, I probably made 8 or 10 of these. They were so much fun. And when I saw a couple of tutorials on them, and I thought, what set could I use? And I thought, I have not used my painted glass set very much, and I would like to experiment with it. And it turned out to be the perfect one. Now, if you notice here, I have this background, I have this stamp here, and I stamped this on window sheet. So I wanted to demonstrate that, and it's not really ideal to stamp in Versamark and emboss on window sheet. The main issue is this static really clings to this. So I had a little trick to show you to help with that static issue. Okay, so I will set this aside and I will bring in my template to show you while I get set up with the embossing. Okay, so here's my template, and it folds out flat. And one of the things I did want to bring in is how I cut this. So you can get 2 and you will have waist. It's cut at 4 1/4 and then also 8 1/4. So I took off 1/4 inch here. That's very important for these dimensions on where you score it. If you get anything wrong, it just doesn't fit in the card or in an envelope, I'm sorry. So there are issues, and you definitely want to try to get that right. Okay, so I will start bringing in the embossing part. Okay, here's my stamp. Here's my little window sheet. And I think I cut this at 2.5 by 2.5, and then I end up using the layering squares to cut it down further. So here's my Versamark, and this is probably the most important thing, your embossing buddy. So I was saying I'm going to show you a little trick, but I do want to bring in more paper here to protect my surface. Okay, so my trick here, and don't even have any illusions this is going to go perfectly, because again, the window sheets are not ideal for embossing on. Probably most people would try to use the vellum, but vellum is a little cloudier, and I kind of like the shine, the way it looked with the window sheet. So smack it really good. You want literally powder on it, and that will help, not cure, but help with the static issue. So I will go ahead and stamp it. I like to bring the stamp Versamark pad to the stamp itself, because it is definitely a little pad. And it's not that this stamp is that big, but it would definitely have overlap. So ink that up really well, and then just go straight down in your window sheet. And if you get it off just a tad, you can do a little bit of adjustment when you cut it out. Okay, so there it is. And next I'm bringing in my black embossing powder. So to get this to come out right, it is a bit of a pain. And you do need to blow quite a bit sometimes to get it. I was blowing a lot just to get off the excess powder, because it really does want to cling to this window sheet. But with doing that powder, lots of the embossing buddy on it, it really reduced it a lot, the problem. Because I did quite a few, and I was huffing and puffing a lot. But I will blow a little just to make sure that I get the powder off. All right, I'm going to turn on my heat gun here and bring in my tweezers, because I do recommend holding this. Window sheet is expensive, so I try to be conservative how much I'm using, but I don't like getting burned. I don't know who would, but okay. So it's best to keep it flat to try to reduce the amount of warping, but it's not too big of a deal, I suppose. If I were to bring it up, it'd be more interesting for the viewers, I suppose. But we want the best possible result, right? Okay, so I think that looks good. I'll turn off my heat gun. And so that's the embossing part of the project. Now, to color it, you just want to flip it over, and I've got to grab my, I'm going to use the stamping blends, and for this particular color scheme, I'm going to be doing a Christmas one. So go with your darkest shades of your blends. I definitely suggest go dark with this. So I have my dark Poppy Parade, my dark shaded Spruce, and finally, what was the other color? Oh, the Mango Melody I used, but which really kind of looks close to the crushed curry when you use it this way. Okay, so first thing you want to do is make sure you are having it upside down, so the embossed part is behind when you're coloring. And then you just start, you know, coloring. I like using the thin tip edge. I think that helps for this, because you really can't do any actual blending per se. You're just like adding color over it. And I won't color all this because I do have one prepared already, so that to save a little time. But I'll just show enough that you can see how it's actually a lot of fun to color. But there's a lot of coloring in this particular project, so if you don't like coloring, painted glass set might not be for you. Okay, so and then when you flip it over, it looks just like that. Isn't that cool? So if you did not want to buy the graceful glass vellum, which is gorgeous, or here's the graceful glass, and it comes out perfect. It really is stunning. But for my particular project, it actually didn't fit in that background like I wanted. So you can do this idea, which is stamping on, using Versamark and embossing powder and stamping on the window sheets. And it definitely works. Okay, so I told you how I use the layering squares, and I just wanted to show how much you lose, about 1/4 of an inch around it. And it just helps gets it more square and exact. You could definitely just use your trimmers. It does sometimes stick even when you, so you might even have to, you know, use your snips just to finish, if you will. Okay, so it'd be better if I came at this angle. Sorry, I didn't think that would be such a pain, but sometimes it does definitely get stuck. So have your snips handy, and that is pretty much all. Okay, so since I have it colored, this time I'm gonna put it on white cardstock, and I cut this exact same. So make sure you have, I like having the embossed side showing, and this is considered the back, the smooth side. So to adhere this, you need glue dots. That's the best way, just much like vellum, it seems to show the least. So just get your glue dots and go for it. I like to put in about 4, and I like to kind of do it on, not exactly the 4 corners, but I like to use 4 glue sticks. I just roll them onto it like so. And you really don't see it behind it, but I would definitely not put it on the clear part. That would definitely show more. Okay, sorry for my arm here. All right, I think we have one more here that could use it. Okay, ooh, that one didn't go so well. Oh well. Okay, so again, just center it up. Yeah, it's best to try to be careful with that centering. And I have the textured side here. So I like backing this against the crushed curry. I feel like some of the yellows you can kind of fudge a little. Like I use the Mango Melody with crushed curry, the blends, and it works pretty well. So one thing when you're coloring on vellum or this window sheet, you definitely want to go with dark colors. Light ones really do not show up. So a pale soft seafoam would be totally, it would just look white, in fact. Anyhow, I will now bring in the Stampin' Trimmer and show you how I scored this card. Okay, so bringing in my Stampin' Trimmer, I will, just moving a little bit, I want to show you how I started this. And it's really quite straightforward. Now this is just the panel here. What I want to go with is the 1 3/8 measurement. So bringing in here, I just line it up, and you do not have to use a scoreboard for this card. And then I move down to 2 3/4. and score again. Now I could keep going and I could go 5.5 and 6 and 7/8, but I actually prefer just flipping it around. And the reason is if my cutting was slightly off, it wouldn't really matter because the difference would be in the center here. So I'm kind of in favor of, you know, going with that route, not just because I'm lazy, but I am a little lazy too. So I don't know if any of you could relate to that, but it is a little just as simple just to flip it over. So that's the basic scoring. Now I'm not going to use this base, but I will use it later on. So I will start showing you how to assemble this, and I wanted to also talk about how this was an evolution of designing. So for this one, I put a black background and I just used black here for the bridge. And then I was thinking, I don't really like the black. So I started experimenting and I decided a different color scheme entirely. So I came up with this card, and this is Blackberry Bliss. And of course I kept with the Bermuda Bay, and it was just a lot of fun to keep changing it up. So here are some of the colors, Pinewood, and I used the Pinewood Planks embossing folder too. So it was just so much fun, just keep changing it up. I mean, who would want to make 8 of the same card? Well, some people wouldn't mind, but it's actually more fun to keep changing and doing actually little changes even. It makes a big difference and it's fun. It just makes it more interesting. So that's my little 2 cents worth, is keep changing it up. If you have to make a bunch of something, why not keep experimenting? Actually, I didn't have to make this. I was just having so much fun. I got really carried away. So the first thing you want to do is put this background. You can use DSP or whatever you want here. I like going ahead and adding that. The next step would be to add our window, which is the stained glass, which is the focal image, if you will. I believe it. Yeah, definitely be considered the focal image. Okay, so I just put this down, and that's pretty much it. Now the next step is the DSP here, and don't put the DSP yet. I'm sorry, or in my case, these beautiful shutters. Now I wanted to explain a little about these. I used the embossing. I embossed them using these Big Shot embossing mats, and it comes with 2, and I used the gray one because the gray one is the thicker one and it embosses much deeper. And I'll show you the difference with what it looks like with the one that is not as deep. Okay, so here's my comparison. Here is, I don't know, can you see? It's not that deep of an embossing. This is much, much deeper. So this is the gray one, this is the blue one. It does kind of can tear it a little bit, so you have to be careful, but I think this shows up so much better that it's definitely worth it. So I would, if you've thought about those embossing mats and were on the fence, I would definitely consider that. Now, I did want to show how it is cut out, and it's very delicate. This is hard to glue and attach to things, especially if you wanted this whole thing to show. I suppose you could use the adhesive strips, but it would kind of rip. I've tried it before. You have to be very careful removing it from the adhesive strips, and it really is pretty this way. So, but keep this in mind. I came up with my other option, which was to make the picket fence. As I was saying, I got really carried away and I had so much fun. I just had a blast doing this. All right, so the measurements for the bridge I came up with was 1.5 inches by 5.25 inches. Now, I did not do the full 5.5 because I want to cover this. So when you cover it, you don't want it showing at this. I don't want it sticking out here. So if that makes sense. All right, so I will set that aside and we will start assembling. All right, so here is the bridge, but I'm going to add the picket fence. I told you I got really carried away with this. It was so fun though. All right, so I'm going to go ahead bringing in, this is like the silicone mat, and this is just to protect my work surface. So as I was saying, these are very delicate. I want to center it, and I want to attach it at those posts. So this is the one that needs to be attached. Oh boy, I just lost it. Should I guess? Okay, I'll put it back, and this time I'll be more careful, I promise. Okay, so, all right, so this one. Okay, and then I want a little, I hope you can see this, a little bit on this one. And that's the only part I'll do for the front. Now, this part I can just go ahead and add a bunch, and it won't matter because it will be covered by the shutters. So I think I'm done with that part. We'll see, I might need it again, you never know. And I'll just line this up. I decided to add those posts before filming this because it is a bit of a pain. You have to try to figure out where you want your fence to go in relationship. Okay, so, and see how it just kind of sticks through this adhesive? It really won't matter in the end, but I want to minimize it where you actually see it, if that makes sense. All right, so I will go ahead and start attaching. I did like using tear and tape for this part. Now, you might want to wait with this right side, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to just show how I did this. Okay, so I got up in here, and I left about 1/8 of an inch, and I just adhered that like that. Okay, so the trick here with these U cards is this side you're having like this, and you're bending it. See how I'm bending this? So bend this all the way over, and then this side needs to be 100% flat. And it looks like my measurement was a little off here. And I'm not sure how that happened, but we're going to do a little quick surgery here. So it comes off so you don't see this in the end. Okay, so anyhow, sometimes things don't go quite the way you plan. Okay, so that's the whole trick with the U-fold. You fold it down flat like that. And then I'm just going to quickly attach these just using some of my liquid adhesive. And we will add the sentiment. And I hope this will inspire you to give this a try. And actually, if you do have this set or have been thinking about getting it, you'll consider getting it or using it more. Now that you have this cute little idea with the fun fold, this would make a great birthday card with a little different color scheme than this. But I thought this would actually be a really cute Christmas card, and I'll show you the sentiments I chose for it in a second. But the decorating has just begun. You get to decorate these shutters or trellis. I don't know what they really are, but I guess they're whatever you want them to be. To me, this looks like a window, and it's like a beautiful little cottage garden. So I'm imagining I'm in England or somewhere like that, and I am in the countryside. That sounds lovely. Okay, so there we go. That is the basic, and it can stand. Isn't that great? It's just too much fun. This is a great card base. I think it's just wonderful. All right, so I said enough about that. Now I'm going to bring in the stuff to decorate. My roses, and I think Christmas roses, and my birdie, my adorable birdie, more roses, and a yellow rose. So to lay this out, I think I will add the sentiment now to the front. So thinking of you, and I'm trying to see if I should use the green or I should use the red. I think I'll use the red. And I wanted to show a little trick about this too. I just have a little scrap here of cardstock, and sometimes you have these laying around, you know, from when you're trimming. And what I do is, this is with this label, I cut out the sentiment, is I just go like this, catch it. Do you see that? I just catch it and use it as a guide. Now, to do the other side, I repeat it, but I'm allowing twice as much matting as I really want. And that's so that we can then center it. Okay. And sometimes I think I got that one a little bit off, but you get the idea. And then, ta-da, you have a perfectly cut, it looks like it's been made for it. Now the punch I used, I did want to point that out, was this one. And I also wanted to show those little fence posts. I used a scrap and I just stuck this in here, tried to center it. Now I'm not centering it too well because I'm kind of away from the screen. But do you see how I do that? And then punch. And then you get the little post. Now, maybe that's going too far, but you know, I said I got a little carried away with this card and I wasn't joking. All right, so I'm just going to add a little snail to the back of the sentiment and talk a little bit. I did do some masking to make the sentiment, which I'm not going to demonstrate because this video is already getting too long. So it was from Winter Woods, and I masked, did I get that straight? I guess so. I masked, covered some of it, and I end up, so the real image is supposed to be like this, thinking of you this season. So I took turns masking off the image. Anyhow, I think it turned out pretty cute because I needed something small so you could really see that picket fence still. All right, so bringing in my dimensionals, I'm going to add a few here and get this baby popped up. Okay. This is going to be right in the center here. So I suppose I could have done this before attaching all of this, but there we go. It's pretty simple with the glue dots. All right, so the last thing is just decorating. So I got to decorate. Oh, well, actually, I do want to. So this one, I've got to decide if I want to add 3 to each side, and I think I do. Okay, 2 and 3. How's that? Odd numbers, right? Okay, so if you're doing 3 on a side, I do suggest doing the center one last. Just, it's easier to center, no pun intended. Although a little bit of irregularity isn't a bad thing. Okay, these are a little sticky things. Okay, so I'm going to have the birdie kind of close to the sentiment, a little bit, not completely centered on here. And I liked adding 1 different colored rose. I don't know why. Not make them all red, but I wanted, it was just fun. Again, I had a lot of fun making these little cards. So I think whoever gets this will get a kick out of it. There isn't a lot of room for your writing your greeting, but actually I don't think that's all bad. Sometimes, like, you don't really necessarily have a lot to say in a greeting sometimes. So having a little space, I think, isn't too big of a deal. So here we go. What I like about these cards, easel and that sort of in the fun folds, is you can set them up like on your desk. The person can display them. And this would actually be a nice format, like for a get well card, if someone was bedridden or something, just to have by their nightstand, just so they can kind of look at something pretty. I think that there are a lot of, boy, these things are a pain to take the backings off. My whole lap is littered with them. I'll definitely have to do some sweeping. They get everywhere. Okay, so just stick it on. And then, of course, because we have it folded this way, we want to fold it down and add our, I just stamped the rest of the greeting here, and we have the flower. I should bring out that stamp set, and you can kind of see the stamp itself. Okay, so here's the stamp, and I was saying first I masked this part off with tape, stamped this in the green, then I masked this upper part, thinking of you, and stamped this in red, or the Poppy Parade, right here. So I hope that clarifies any questions you might have about how I did that. Anyhow, okay, so I'll just quickly use a little bit of liquid adhesive. I did make this pretty much fitted. So it's probably a 1/16 of an inch. And I like the look of that, but it's a little bit trickier to line up. So you definitely had to, the wet glue makes it pretty easy though, because you have that little wiggle room. Okay, there. So I could just sign this, I could color this if I want, or just leave it like that, whatever I felt like. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking some time to watch my video. If there are any products you would like to order, please email me at mewants3@gmail.com and I will give you a hostess code and get you all set up. Okay, so I will bring in a few more of the cards and show them again that I made, and you can tell me in the comments below which color scheme you like the most. This was my first one, so I'm kind of loyal to it in that sense, but I think I made some improvements. And look at this one. I thought that was really cool, those colors with the okay, so yeah, this is lovely lipstick. Isn't that cool though? And I like with the little ribbon, and it says fashionably late, and then on the back I have hope it was great. And this is from the Wonderful Moment set. So if you enjoyed this, please give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Have a great day. Thanks for watching.